attorney at Rothschild. That's a large law firm. I'm based in our New York office. I'm the chair of our Mergers and Acquisitions practice, and I'm also the chair of the Private Equity Venture Capital Committee of the American Bar Association. In that context, I have the opportunity to work with educational institutions like Brown University. I have the opportunity to help deploy capital into global capital markets related to education, and thankfully, I have the opportunity to sit with this amazing.
I spent the bulk of my career in the C-suite in private equity, but now I've shifted my focus, and I am working with emerging leaders who may have been overlooked by the traditional capital.
Hi everyone, my name is Mihaela. I'm Vice President of the Management Board of the International Slavic University in Macedonia, and I'm also the founder of Kinoverzum movie theaters.
I'm Kanika Radhakrishnan, and I'm a patent lawyer. I run a cross-border IP boutique with the name of Evergreen Valley Law Group, with offices in Silicon Valley and Bangalore, India. I'm also a prolific startup investor. I'm sector agnostic and stage agnostic, and have a portfolio of about 25 companies. My most recent exit was Rothschild.
Hello everyone, I'm Apurva. I'm CTO at RRP Electronics Limited. It's a semiconductor company, and I handle all the technology transfers and production and everything. So I look after manufacturing part of it. So it's a really honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So we're going to try to keep things short, keep things tight, get things a little bit back on schedule today. My name is Mathew Kittay. I'm an attorney at Rothschild. That's a large law firm. I'm based in our New York office. I'm the chair of our Mergers and Acquisitions practice, and I'm also the chair of the Private Equity Venture Capital Committee of the American Bar Association. In that context, I have the opportunity to work with educational institutions like Brown University. I have the opportunity to help deploy capital into the global capital markets related to education, and thankfully, I have the opportunity to sit with this amazing panel of panelists to talk about these critical issues. We've heard today two perspectives already from the panels. We've talked generally about the role of women in leadership. My wife is actually in the 30% Club, if anybody knows what that is. It's an initiative to bring women in finance into the most senior ranks. And so this is something that's very important to me. Then we've heard about access to healthcare, which is a critical vertical that we need to develop in order to create a healthy global population that can engage in the things that we're going to talk about today, which is education. Education, along with health, as you heard on the last panel, is critical to women's issues, to access issues, and straddles historically the relationship between government and the private sector. We have on us today with the panel, and then I'll have each panel introduce themselves briefly, advisors, capital raisers, and operators in the global education system, all of whom come together to frame this dialogue. With that, I'll have each person introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get into the panel. Please.
Hi, I'm Duyen Tran. I spent the bulk of my career in the C-suite in private equity. But now I've shifted my focus, and I am working with emerging leaders who may have been overlooked by the traditional capital structure.
So, hi everyone, my name is Mihaela. I'm Vice President of the Management Board of the International Slavic University in Macedonia, and I'm also the founder of Kinoverzum movie theaters.
Hi, I'm Kanika Radhakrishnan, and I'm a patent lawyer. I run a cross-border IP boutique with the name of Evergreen Valley Law Group, with offices in Silicon Valley and Bangalore, India. I'm also a prolific startup investor. I'm sector agnostic and stage agnostic, and have a portfolio of about 25 companies. My most recent exit was Grok.
Yeah. Hello everyone, I'm Apurva. I'm CTO at RRP Electronics Limited. It's a semiconductor company, and I handle all the technology transfers and production and everything. So I look after manufacturing part of it. So it's a really honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much each for joining us. So let's start with a general question, Tran, if you don't mind. Or sorry, actually we'll start with Kanika. What gaps still exist in the access to funding for inclusive and purpose-driven ventures?
Sure. So as an angel investor in startups, and I must say I'm partial towards women-owned companies, one of the biggest gaps that I notice when it comes to funding sought by women founders, or for that matter, underrepresented founders, especially doing impact-led innovations, is that they're often not visible in the networks where funds are raised. What I mean by that is typically venture capitalists who run the purse strings and who are in the business of doling out money or funding ventures, they like to fund ventures that are led by people that look like them. And typically it's men, and in the Silicon Valley circles it's white men, not even diverse men to that extent. So it's very important that we show our visibility in those circles and not be treated as invisible while we are raising money. Another gap that I often notice is that documentation and governance gap. When we start a company, especially as a woman founder or a diverse founder or someone leading an impact-led venture, it's important that we have our governance and board readiness together from the get-go. This is not something that is put together as an afterthought after you start the company. So if you can plug those holes, then you are in a good shape when you're going out and raising money. Last but not the least, and this is very unique to impact-led innovation, is that you need to find capital which believes in the virtue of patience. Because EdTech, climate tech ventures take a long time to give an exit. And if you go after capital, which is looking for fast exits, then that may not be the right path for you.
And so following up on that, Tran, what do you look for when you look for a target? What makes a good target in the space?
Well, I think, to echo my panelists here, other than the investment thesis, obviously.
Well, so let's start with that. What's the investment thesis? Because there's an opportunity for divergence between what we would consider traditionally the public goal of creating an educated population, of making sure everybody has access to education, to the private goal of making money, right? So.
Yes, and in the last decade or so, we've really seen an expansion of the definition of sustainability or purpose-driven capital, right? I mean, when I started out in this space almost 10 years ago, purpose-driven led investments were considered charity, right? Like charitable investing. And I think the education that has really taken place over the last decade has really been that the proven investment thesis that you can make money by making an impact. We've seen almost $4 trillion of capital that has been earmarked to ESG specific funds. One of the biggest gaps still, though, is that very little, perhaps maybe 2.5% of that capital has actually seen its way to women-led firms or minority-led firms. And as a result, to echo my panelist's tone, right, what we see typically still are that the majority of this capital is still being controlled by primarily white male and primarily from the same ecosystems as the Ivy Leagues or the socioeconomic system that they grew up with. So I think over the next decade, the aim is really how do we spread some of that expansion into a much smaller the population, which is women and minority-led folks.
Wonderful. And so let's talk a little bit more, let's dive a little bit deeper into what an investment target looks like, what a great investment target looks like. And we'll start maybe with a technology, maybe even a hardware perspective. What role do you see kind of from the outside as a leading manufacturer of hardware that feeds into educational opportunities? What role do you see technology playing in kind of promoting the education sector?
So, yeah.
And the responsibility,
yes,
not the role, but the responsibility.
It's a great question because I come from semiconductor background and defense background. And semiconductor is completely new field in India. It's just starting. And when it comes to skill set, it's very difficult to find people who have experience in semiconductor, who can work in semiconductor. So universities and all these industries go hand in hand together because for universities you need a course for all these kind of subjects. So companies like us are already investing in universities to create ecosystem, create a platform for new engineers to develop skill set. I guess in terms of technology, what companies like us can offer is a transfer of knowledge to quick turnaround time when it comes to training someone, and also funding labs, because that has been happening in India a lot. So we have a lot of institutes like IITs, which are one of the prime universities in India. So companies like us are investing in research funds and all the development funds. So I guess it goes hand in hand. We need to work together when we are talking about new emerging sectors, AI, semiconductor, even emerging fields in defense.
Wonderful. And then, let's bring it all together now. So you've got people all there who are part of your ecosystem as you guys are operating your university. You've got legal, you've got financing, you've got technology. That's all driving the opportunity. Tell us a little bit about how you access all of this to further the mission of the university. Yeah.
Thank you. So it really depends on the programs you're offering. Like for each program requires different sort of expertise, different sort of networks, different connections, and we try to have such people in the loop for each program, because we offer very specific programs and also unique programs that some of the other universities in my country, which is Macedonia, do not have. So, for example, we offer fire safety, we offer occupational safety and health, which is a unique program that nobody else offers. And it is a new opportunity in Macedonia, because it became popular like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, nobody was discussing occupational safety and health, and now it is a major thing, as you know, with European regulations and all of that. So we try to keep in the loop, but also following trends is not enough. If you want to offer programs, as you mentioned, you work with universities, but for a university to train somebody to work in something, we need 3 years, 4 years. So just following trends is not enough. We need to forecast trends. We need to, based on the expertise that we have, we need to think what would be the next big thing, so we can train the students in that field and help them be very good at what they would do like in the next years.
So, Mihaela, this is going to frame the next question, but I want to ask you, how are you financed? How's the university financed? Is it public? Is it a mix of public and private?
It's 100% private, and yeah, only from fees that our students pay, and some external funding like Erasmus projects, but yeah, it is completely our own funding.
And so, so I'm going to use that to frame something. If anybody had the chance to listen to Donald Trump's address to the WEF yesterday, how many people listened to the hour-and-a-half address? I listened to almost 50 minutes of it. All right, not too many hands in the audience, which is interesting, because we're here to hear this dialogue, right? Tran, leveraging what Mihaela said, leveraging what Donald Trump said, which is that the reduction in federal funding for various programs in the United States has forced talent out of the federal payroll and into the private sector. The private sector includes private schools, private universities, and education institutions. And by the way, he said it's tripled, and I don't know if this is true, but it's tripled the wealth of those individuals because they're getting paid much higher salaries in the private sector.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Did you hear that, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. So first, Tran, tell us about whether or not you think that's true from your perspective as an investor in the space.
With all due respect, I do not agree with that. I'm an immigrant, and so I came up with federal funding for education, a lot of loans, a lot of student loans, and so forth. And so the only path that I see really towards further expansion of inclusive economy going forward is some kind of federal support in the educational system. And I think what that produces is actually a group of individuals who then want to serve for the purpose of paying back what the government has given them. So, I think about my own journey, and I think about how are the ways that I can perhaps work for the federal government in my twilight years as a contribution to what I've received. So I think that, at least for me, the role of education has to rely heavily on government support to further expand what we're trying to achieve as a society.
Mihaela, and then we're gonna shift a little bit, but Mihaela, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I would need to agree with Trump on this. I don't know about the US, but I think that overemployment in the public administration is a burden to state budgets. So I don't know how exactly it was done in the US, but I do believe that if you overburden something, it's gonna collapse over time. So if somebody made the analysis and thinks that this is a problem, then yeah, and I'm always for the private sector. I mean, I work in the private sector, and I believe that, yeah, you can achieve very good results in the private sector.
Law firms have benefited from this trend also, by the way. When employees get pushed out of policy writing and legal enforcement institutions in the federal government, they come into law firms, right? Law firms benefit from this in certain ways because you get people who are former directors of organizations coming to the private sector. They also have challenges because it's not the same skill set, right? Getting something done as a federal administrator and then just saying, okay, you no longer work at the IRS, now you're a private tax attorney, it doesn't flip over one-to-one like that.
Yeah, but what about the work ethics? Sorry to ask you a question, but
I'm fair game.
Yeah, do they have the same work ethics? Because in my country, it's not always the case. Like if you work in public, it's not the same.
I think it depends. Obviously, it depends on the individual. Some people, I think it could be different motivations, right? Some of the most brilliant minds that I know, people I went to law school with, people I went to undergraduate with, they could have made a lot more money in the private sector, but they went into the public sector because they believe they're right. They want to be advocates for change. And when they move to the private, so they do their job, they work harder, they work more diligently, even with less resources.
Yeah, we're not putting everybody in the same
Yeah, so I'm saying it depends on the individual.
But I mean, if you look at school teachers as a great example, we need more of them. We do not need those bright, intelligent minds exiting the public sector and in the suit of more money and earnings. I respect that because I'm a capitalist myself and been very focused on making money and for me and my investors. But if we look at some of the public sectors, some critical roles in society need to be filled by the brilliant minds that we have pushed out, whether through ideology or through pay or just through purely disrespect. And I think that's a big mistake that we have made in the U.S. and perhaps in other parts of the world.
And there is value, tremendous value, Tran, to private equity and venture capital in the education system. You come in with a business plan, you come in with an organized approach. It's just because you're making money on it doesn't mean you're not providing a world-class education system. They can be aligned. Now, Kanika, I wanted to ask you, because also as lawyers both who advise clients in this space, Tran has one thesis, right? She's one investor in this space. She has one set of LPs. But we get to see kind of a macro perspective because you might represent multiple funds with multiple VCs in the space. Given that kind of broader perspective, you have anything input there? Yeah.
I mean, in terms of investment thesis, I think as an investor, you're obviously looking for great ideas. You're looking for a powerful team that's going to be able to execute. So those are the top things that I look for if I'm looking for a company to invest in. Apart from that, I want to also check, make sure that they've checked all the boxes. Governance, IP issues, are they looking, at least appearing board ready, even though, ringing the NASDAQ bell might be, few years down the lane, but are they at least thinking about the long-term picture in terms of surrounding themselves with the right advisors, board members, and so on from the get-go, so that when later on they get into, Series A, I'm typically an angel investor, but when they get into Series A, they should have a clean cap table, and they should have thought about all these issues. These should be baked into the program. And especially when it comes to impact-led innovation, they have to make sure that the impact that they want to create is somehow codified in the DNA of the company itself. It's there in the mission, the vision, the charter of the company, and it's also there in the form of formal documents that they have, shareholder covenants, so that the founders understand what it is that they're trying to create, what difference they're trying to create in this world, and the investors know that this is not a company that they're investing in where they can extract themselves if they don't see a quick gain. So I think those are the things we need to be very cognizant of, and if founders can think through these issues early on, then I think the going is safe.
And then switching gears one more time, because you're talking about diligence and operations. Apruva, did I say it correctly?
Yes.
We're not going to get off the hook without talking about AI and its intersection in this dialogue. What do you think the role, the responsibility, and from the outside as somebody who kind of who looks at these issues from a technical perspective, the corporate responsibility and AI's role right in the private sector education?
Oh, in private sector education?
Well,
Yeah. So AI is obviously emerging field. But yes, when it comes to AI, you need a complete ecosystem. You cannot just be dependent on that software who is running. It does not run independently. So we need a complete ecosystem. We need to create a support for a complete ecosystem, starting from hardware. I'm talking about hardware because I come from R&D background. I have worked in defense technologies, and now I moved to semiconductor. So AI is emerging field, and it's really fast-moving field, and it's changing every day. For companies like us who are manufacturing the chips for all these technologies, it takes time to build all this infrastructure. It takes few years and to start the manufacturing. So the overall support from the government is also required, which in India I'm seeing it's starting now. They are supporting it very well. The vision is changing, the total landscape is changing for the ecosystem, and from the startup, because India had seen a lot of startup in AI, but they could not get ecosystem for the manufacturing, for even a support like from the different companies. If they are making something, there is a support system, support software is required. So it has to be in close proximity. To pace up this process, government needs to support those startups who are into AI, and many of the startups are doing marvelous jobs. I'm really talking to a lot of people in India, and we started as a manufacturing company, and also we are looking forward to investing in the companies who are working in AI and also into designing. And the landscape is changing, in my opinion, but it has to be supported on the right time to fast forward this process, and quick turnaround times are required. We cannot work in silos. Everyone has to work together.
Okay, and just being mindful of time, we'll take last thoughts, and I'll ask each of the other three panelists if they want to weigh in on AI, but you can change it. So, Tran, if you want to weigh in on AI, what are you seeing as particularly novel kind of investment targets? How are they leveraging technology? Is it critical to your investment thesis? Are you developing a forward-looking investment thesis, looking at the technologies that the schools are implementing?
Oh, well, that's a lot of questions.
It's a lot.
for
Yeah,
last
you can
month.
answer that, or something you need to close on.
Well, I mean, just I guess a global perspective on AI in education and how it impacts at least my little world of investments. It's become over the last year or so very clear that the education that these younger investors, analysts, associates have gained from our school systems have been highly leveraged now with the help of AI. And I see younger generations like my daughter who's here in high schools and so forth, just relying on that technology to really elevate their thinking and their critical, more importantly, their critical thinking process. So I actually think, the thesis for me is that AI is going to be an accelerator of more jobs and more opportunities. It will just look different, right? I think as humans we'll have the more capacity to use our critical thinking because the machine will do some of the less critical processing.
And then Mihaela, as it relates to the International Slavic University, what role is AI playing in your future planning?
Well, universities usually criticize AI because, many students can try to write essays with it, and but I do think that it helps a lot, and we as universities, we should not be afraid of it. We should teach our students how to use it. We should help them use it properly and in an ethical way. I mean, it's not ethical for AI to write your essay, but then you can use AI to brainstorm, to facilitate your research and so on. So I would bet that AI would be a good companion for every student in the future. We just, as universities, need to offer the infrastructure for it.
Thank you. And Kanika?
So I strongly believe in AI for good, and I believe that AI is here to stay. It's not a fad, it's not a trend. And if you're building a company today, then AI needs to be front and center of what you're building. But at the same time, it can't be a tokenism item. So you're not doing AI for the heck of AI. You really have to figure out how to leverage it, either to improve operational efficiencies or to do what you're doing. If you're in the healthcare sector or ed tech, you better be able to achieve your goals better using AI. That's where we can move on to the next step in the future and try to do more strategic problem solving using AI.
All right, I think that's our panel today. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Studio.